recording this here soon, and we just turned the recording on. So thank you very much. All righty. So welcome, everybody. My name is Errol Wendt. I am the founder and CEO and Chief Inspiration Officer for Marbury's Consulting Solutions, a human innovation design firm that seeks to shepherd us into the new era of higher education leadership and work with organizations to optimize its human creativity potential. And I'm thrilled to be able to bring one of my good colleagues and national thought leaders around artificial intelligence, Artist Kaiju, from Element 451, into this conversation to help discuss and engage us around this very, very important topic. Before I move forward, I want to acknowledge our partners within this series. First and foremost, the Lumina Foundation, who you'll see on the top of the screen for awarding the state of Kentucky the grant. My company is working with the Council of Post-Secondary Education, which is leading a collaborative called the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative to leverage design thinking principles and structures and processes to innovate around the future of admissions, enrollment, as well as financial aid. There were 7 states across the board that were awarded grants as a part of a competitive process. Those states included California, Washington, Arizona, Texas, Louisiana, and Illinois. And we're proud to be representing the state of Kentucky as a part of this series to lay the foundation on a critically important part of imagining admissions, which is having a context around where AI has been, where AI is now, and where AI is going into the future. To my enrollment colleagues across the board, this has been a very challenging time from the beginning of the pandemic all the way to present. As a 15-year professional in higher education enrollment management, now on the consulting side, I can say firsthand that watching the structures, not only within the country, but also in higher education transform before our eyes was disillusioning on one end, but exciting on the other end. Because we had a chance to really think about how we wanted to reimagine the work that we're doing. But one thing that we know about this profession is that it is a high volume, fast-paced profession. And we have individuals that are working tirelessly to go ahead and make sure that they are reimagining and thinking about ways to support students and move them into a higher education future that will move them into a pathway of success. But let's take into consideration what we've seen this past year. We saw the SCOTUS decision that banned diversity, equity, and inclusion practices like affirmative action come down. We've seen the residual impact of the pandemic in the form of test optional admissions. We're at the doorstep of the pandemic shift, and just this year alone, we had to navigate through the FAFSA challenges and leaving our enrollment professionals at the doorstep of having to have conversations around affordability. Now is the time to fundamentally reimagine admissions, enrollment, and financial aid systems to serve today's students better. And we're proud to work and partner with the Lumina Foundation. And I am proud to be an advocate on behalf of the Council of Post-Secondary Education. Talking about artificial intelligence is equally as important. So we are here to create space for that discussion for the enrollment planning leaders across the state of Kentucky, as well as across the nation, to have a strong foundation going into the summer with your planning efforts to think about what does admissions need to be in order to differentiate your product, to have high impact for the students that you're serving, and continue to strengthen the pipeline of students that are in need of improving their future and moving into a college or a university that's going to support that endeavor. With that being said, I'm pleased to introduce my colleague, Artist, to take us away for the first part of a 4-part series on artificial intelligence for enrollment planning leaders, making sense of artificial intelligence. Take it away, Artist.
Right. Hey, everybody. My name is Artist Kaiju. I'm founder and CEO of Element 451. I'm an AI educator. Have been doing this for a couple of years now, actually a lot longer than that, but most recently around generative AI. I host a podcast called Generation AI. I do a lot of speaking in conferences like NAGAP, NACAC, AMA, and so on and so forth. So I've been around for quite a bit and been talking about generative AI, how to learn it, and AI, and specifically in marketing and enrollment management as well in higher education. So today we're going to, we're going to go over the first of a four-part webinar series that talks a lot about making, AI generally and thinking about it in a kind of comprehensive way. The first one is going to be around making sense of AI and literally setting the foundation of AI literacy. You'd be surprised how many of us go through the motions and think about we understand AI, but there's a lot more parts to it, and having that literacy can bring you up in that conversation to get started. The second part is going to be around AI skills. We're going to be talking a little bit about prompt engineering and kind of the different components and tools on how to use that. I have a couple of different courses that, including one of my own courses that we're going to introduce there as well. AI ethics and ethics and security during that last one, because there's a lot, this is where we get a lot of questions around AI and adoption. And then the last part is going to be around applications, how these applications, what's available today to be used in your institutions, what's available today that's helping the student experience, that's helping productivity. And we're going to be taking a look at a whole bunch of them as well. So with that, let's just jump right in, right? The age of AI has begun, and the artificial intelligence is as revolutionary as mobile phones and the internet. But during a lot of these transitions, there's been those who have been skeptical and those who have adopted it and moved forward. And I have a video here that kind of reflects a little bit of that. And then I wanted to kind of show it to everybody.
Do you know what that big announcement is today with the iPod?
No, what?
Does anybody know what that is?
What is it? What are we
I don't know. They're speculating an iPhone, that you're going to be able to talk on the phone with your iPod.
You know what?
Tell us why it's a bad idea. It's like the computer. It'll never take off.
What are you going to do? Carry the phone? You carry the phone over here, carry the iPod over there, carry the thing between your legs? Stop it.
One device.
It's the one thing.
It's ridiculous. So many things to carry.
That's the idea. It's one device. It's an iPod and a phone.
No, I don't like it.
So I don't know how many of you have, come across your Regises in your institutions or in your organizations, but certainly there's those who are saying, hey, this is never going to catch on. And then we have this monumental shift in how this stuff gets adopted and how it transforms the way we work. So, here's a little bit of a kind of a gauge on your interest and what do you think about AI in your institution. If you kind of get this QR code, there's a Mentimeter survey that we can take a look at. And, if you can just snap a quick link to this and we can go to and take a look and what's happening, that would really, let's see here.
And you can also click on the same QR code that Artis has put up. You can look in the chat and you can click on the link and be able to participate in terms of answering that question. So Artis, I will take it from here.
Yeah. If you just want to show that would be great.
You got it. All righty. If I could get sharing privileges so we can go to the visual. And we want to thank you all for participating and responding to this as well. So first, we want to engage you in terms of how you're feeling about artificial intelligence. And so this showcases a variety of reactions that have been out there. In the state of Kentucky, we've had a chance to engage our guiding team, which is a leadership core of 8 of our public universities around their feelings regarding AI. And there have been a wide variety of really valuable feedback in terms of anywhere from feeling excited, concerned about the future in terms of what it means for jobs, kind of lethargic from having a grueling innovation period over the course of the pandemic to present, empowered even and excited to be able to move in a direction where artificial intelligence has the ability to make jobs and make life easier. It's just really about how do we understand and learn it. So I've got one response here that we see in terms of powerful. Looking at my data results from our state of Kentucky results, we've seen excited, as I mentioned before, curious. We've also seen responses in terms of energetic. So this is an area where it's really about, this is why we're doing this series. What are some of the areas that we want to engage around in terms of the feelings and emotions, and how do we shape this conversation to address that? Moving to the next. So we've got the feeling down. We want to get the audience's feedback in terms of what you think about artificial intelligence role in society moving forward. This is your chance to be able to share any, and not only the responses you're supposed to share, but also any responses that maybe you've been sitting on in terms of curiosity as you've seen the evolution of artificial intelligence. So feel free to put some different responses in there, and we'll engage around those. So yeah, Artis and I have certainly been having conversations on some of these terms here. A tool. So what does it mean to have a tool? How do we learn how to use that tool? If you have a hammer and that hammer is you're not educated on how to use it, everything is going to look like a nail, right? So recognizing what this tool can be used effectively in order to make our enrollment pipeline stronger across the board. Transformational. Transformational is an understatement for sure. Artis is going to talk a lot about the transformational aspect of our society in greater detail. I love the video that we saw in terms of Regis, because there was a time where people looked at the iPhone and said, not going to happen, right? And we're in that time right now. We are at the vanguard of that. Increases capacity, great responses, security concerns. Yes, the infrastructures, the regulations that are happening, not at the national level, but also the state level, and then the university levels are all front of the ledger right now in terms of having those conversations. How do enrollment planning leaders engage your executive leaderships around artificial intelligence and make a compelling case to be able to say this is important to consider as a part of not only shaping the product that's being sold, but also the process that a student is going into? Which we'll name a couple of more. We have hesitant. That's very, very fair and unknown. I think with the unknown, that brings some hesitance and whatnot. So, all righty. So thank you all for engaging in this. I'm going to stop my share at this time and give it back to you, Artis. We will share these results out to the group, but I think that this gives us a good temperature of what the audience is thinking about right now.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for contributing on that. So not only, some of the responses that you're having right now are not uncommon to a lot of the responses that we get when we talk to a lot of other leaders, or we talk to a lot of other enrollment marketing leaders. This is a survey from MIT Technology Review. And when they were asked about what's going to be the impact to your business around artificial intelligence, 98% said it will impact them very deeply. Only 9% have actually adopted AI. So the recognition is there that this is going to be transformational. This is going to impact our organizations and the way we do work very deeply, but only 9% have actually started to adopt it. So we're really in the early stages here, and understanding AI and understanding its impact and how to go about it and start experimenting is really going to be important for us to move forward here. And again, we really think that, and I believe, and I'm an enthusiast as well and a practitioner, but I really believe that AI will change the way people work, learn, travel, get healthcare, and communicate with each other. It's going to be one of those transformational, once-in-a-generation type of waves or changes. And it's not necessarily just a piece of technology, but it's a lot more than that they can help us amplify our human potential as well. But in order to kind of think about it in that way, you first need to understand what it is, right? And it's nothing, it's not magic, it's not some voodoo behind the scenes. It's something that's been around, or at least the word artificial intelligence has been around since the 1950s. If you know, or if you've heard of Alan Turing, he's the father of computer science or artificial intelligence. Alan Turing, there's even a test named after him, the Turing test that we usually do. But then also the Turing Awards is the Nobel Prize of Computer Science as well. But anyways, it's been around since the 1950s, and it's really the study of how computers think like humans. How do we make computers think like humans, right? How do they solve problems, and how do they learn and reason about the world and make decisions that are similar to humans do? And communication is a big part of that. It wasn't really until Watson from IBM that beat the Jeopardy champions that we saw it in the popular culture, and artificial intelligence coming into the popular culture. And then back, a few years after that, in 2017, when AlphaGo by Google beat the champions in Go, which is a very, very complex game. Unlike chess, it has billions and trillions and quadrillions of different moves that you can possibly do. So you can't do it by force, but you have to really learn the language and how to do it. And when you think about it, like when you think about that, artificial intelligence is this area of making computers think like humans. It's been around for a really long time. Then it's an umbrella term, and underneath that we have a lot of different things. We have things like machine learning, which we a lot of times like we call predictive modeling, and so on and so forth. Inside of that, there's deep learning, which is how do we get these algorithms, and how do we get these computers to understand without actually giving them any instructions, but to learn from the data. And that's where these large language models fall under, that you probably have heard over the past year and a half, which are used by ChatGPT and some of the other models as well. And that's where generative AI falls under as well, right? So we're going to talk a lot about that today. Things like computer vision fall under that, where you have kind of image recognition with self-driving cars and so on and so forth, natural language processing with your Alexa and your Siri. So those are all kind of manifestations of artificial intelligence where they fall under this umbrella. But at the core of it, it's nothing crazy, right? It's not a lot of magic happening there. It's really at the core of it is what we call our AI models. An AI model is really just a computer program that analyzes a lot of data. Well, you have small models, so it analyzes data sets and find patterns and then makes predictions, right? And sometimes those predictions can be predictive around, okay, this is going to be the next number, but then also can be generative, right? So generative is a little bit different, where it generates new stuff, right? Stuff that he hasn't really seen before. It just makes new things. And we're going to talk about that as well. So when you think about the predictive models for the models for predictive, you think about, well, I have predictive models in enrollment as well. So you have things like forecasting, product recommendations, fraud detection falls under that. So when you see in this image, it says, okay, I've learned a lot about this data, and then I can make predictions. If I'm shown, is this I can categorize something. Is this a cat or not a cat, and so on and so forth. In our case, we can do predictions for example, when we do enrollment forecasting, right? We talk about this is a predictive model that we use here, likeliness to apply. How likely is this person to apply? Are they going to apply or not, based on data that we learned from historical student records and so on and so forth. So this is a predictive model that we're using. Your phone or your iPhone Face ID or Google ID and so on and so forth, those are also predictive models, right? It's basically taking a picture of your face and then reconstructing, and it's saying, okay, is this you or not, right? It has a model underneath that's making that prediction. Is it you or is it not you? And it's unlocking your phone based on that prediction. Here's another one, and this is on the personalization side, where we all are familiar with Netflix, and we log into Netflix, and we're kind of displayed with these shows. But what Netflix does, which you don't realize, is that they change the the posters of all those shows depending on your history. So if you like rom-coms, then they're going to put in like a human factor to those posters. But if you like, horror movies, then they're going to put something a little bit more spooky and scary and mysterious as part of those posters. So they're trying to kind of appeal to your interest and try to appeal to your prior history for personalization there as well. And here's another one. This is predictive AI as well. And we're talking about Tesla, and this is self-driving cars. So underneath, it has a model that has learned from millions and millions of video driving hours, and it's learned all of the objects. So it knows every single millisecond or few milliseconds. It understands, what do I do? It analyzes all the cameras. It says, do I move? Do I speed up? Do I slow down? Do I turn left? Do I turn right? So all of those predictions are getting done really, really fast. And you're seeing a self-driving system here that has learned from all of that. So that's a predictive model that's happening underneath. Actually, it's running multiple times, right, depending on where it is. So now we switch to generative AI, and generative AI is a little bit different, right? So generative AI, it's again making predictions, but it's learned, like essentially you go ahead and you give it a whole bunch of stuff, right? So you give it a whole bunch of books, and then you can ask it questions about that, and it kind of pulls up answers. So it makes things up, right? So it produces new stuff from that. So it creates new content based on what it has learned from existing content. And at the core of it, it's really just a probability model, right? It's just something that says, okay, what's the probability? Give me the highest word that's probable to come after this word, right? And then it does that again and again and again and again. And then we get sentences, and we get, really incredible kind of prose with ChatGPT that you probably have seen recently. It's just that it's very, very large data behind it, and it understands a lot of stuff, right? So when you think about it, the manifestation of this has been over the past year and a half now through ChatGPT. You guys have probably used that. Gemini, which is the Google version, and then Claude, which is the Anthropic. It's another one. So all three of these are very interesting and important, but ChatGPT has been the one that a lot of folks talk about around generative AI and what it is and how it works. And I'm going to switch my screen sharing here to go to my other screen, just so we can do kind of a little bit of a live ChatGPT demo. And I know that we're going to go through this presentation. We might have some questions at the end or as part of this, but let me switch my screen. All right. So does everybody see my screen? Excellent. So I switched my screen. So the first thing that we can do here, this is ChatGPT, so chat.openai.com. And I'm using a paid version of this. I have ChatGPT version 4. And if you don't have that, you're probably using 3.5. But anyway, so we'll talk more about that during our next webinar. But I just wanted to give you a couple of examples here. And I want to give you examples in the realm of enrollment management or enrollment marketing. I do have I've put together, because of all of the teaching and all of the demos, I've put together a prompts.element451.com. So this is an example of a lot of prompts, from writing styles to to things like writing great subject lines. So these are all prompts that if you don't know where to start, you can start here. But I'm going to go here and copy a few things. I'm going to copy a couple of things from here. Give me 1 second as I go through this. Here we go. So one thing that I can copy in here is a subject line generator, right? So I'm going to go ahead and copy this text in here, and we're going to paste it. And what I'm going to replace here is going to, because I have a placeholder to, all right. And I can, replace this with, I can just leave it that way, right? So as soon as I go ahead and do that, now you're going to see that it's going to produce for me some subject lines. And prompting and prompt engineering is something that's really important, right? So knowing how to do this prompting is another skill that we'll touch base on next week, and we'll introduce some courses as well for you to use later on. But think about this, right? So now we can have some really interesting subject lines. We can change these going forward, but this is how you do it in ChatGPT. We can do the same exact thing in Gemini and gemini.google.com. So we can go in here and I can copy the same exact thing in here, or just leave the placeholder for the university, and then I can go in here and do the same thing. And you're going to see that there's some differences perhaps in these models and how they work and what kind of answers do they provide for you. But again, this is a generative AI manifestation. This is a chatbot that is using this large language models underneath. All right, so if you haven't used ChatGPT or if you haven't used Gemini, highly recommend that you start kind of thinking about it. And we'll touch base on that a little bit, like I said, during our next webinar. All right, so I'm going to switch back to my other screen. All right, so let's continue then. Here's another example of generative AI, and this is not text, but it's actually images. So generative AI is able to produce images, and in ChatGPT, the model is called DALL-E, so you can ask it to produce an image, and it can do that. This is something different, but images were produced, for like I use them for our trade shows, for example. I use them for billboards and kind of marketing material for us. And these were produced, I mean, it would have taken me thousands of dollars to go ahead and kind of schedule a campus photo shoot, but I was able to produce this in just a matter of minutes by doing some prompting around it. Multi-generational, diverse student population, or diverse life cycle students, graduate students in here, freshmen coming to campus, diversity. So those things are produced by generative AI. Here's another one. And in this case, rather than just producing images, it produces whole videos, right? So this is, we are now able to produce whole videos. So the whole video in here is produced by a model called Sora from OpenAI, and these are technically already available in some of the Adobe tools that some of you can use today, or some creatives can use today. So this is going to become more and more common as we start thinking about how we incorporate these creative tools, images, videos, as part of our social media, as part of our recruiting efforts, and slicing and dicing all of these things. If you think about generative AI, it's not just for or AI is not just for marketing. It's not just for producing content, but it can produce, and it's being used for other things as well. For example, Google produces it to DeepMind to add compounds. Think about compounds as, for example, new materials that can come online. But we don't know that those materials exist in nature, but we can artificially create them, and we can produce them by generative AI. So, this can be the next superconductor, for example, can come out of some of this research, which is really interesting. Medicine, when you do drug design now, you can actually produce the compounds for that drug, and then you can accelerate the speed to delivery. So think about some of those important implementations or use cases of generative AI as well. AI can code, right? And it can code really well. So ChatGPT can output code for you. Google Gemini can output code for you. And I like to tell people, I'm like, look, if you're going to go into data science, or if you're going to go into computer science now, look, the most powerful language for working with data is not Python, it's not SQL, it's actually English, right? So this idea that we can use AI now to actually produce code that can be very complex, and we don't have to learn those technical intricacies of it. We can just write in English is very, very powerful and brings us to a whole new level. So how do we think about when we are teaching our next generation of computer scientists, or when we're teaching our next generation of students, how do we describe that, this is going to be different now? Oops.
A five-part Making Sense of Artificial Intelligence. It's a five-part webinar series taking you on a journey from theory to practice. Making Sense of Artificial Intelligence. C'est une série de webinaires en 5 parties qui vous emmène dans un voyage de la théorie à la pratique.
So I speak no word of French, right? And this is another use case where you can do translations from one language to another, and you can see the translation that is happening. My lips are synced, and audio translation as well. So this is really, really important because we now start entering into a world where we can, access to information is very easy, but we can translate all of our materials. We can access to education can be a lot easier, a lot better, because you're not limited anymore to having stuff in English. You can have them in any language in the world, and the source material doesn't have to be translated. And in a lot of cases, you're saving thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars for these translations that up to 2 years ago or a year ago, even today, some are costing us a lot of money for this as well. You can translate, anything technically now. So that's another use case of this language. Of course, there is the things that come along with it, like deep fakes and so on. But we'll talk more about some of that maybe in our third webinar, and how to think about that as well. And so, I mean, you might be sitting back and saying, Art, is like, why would I care about all of this? It's like my job is to go out, talk to students, recruit students, but you're showing me, everything from kind of self-driving cars to, to compounds, to translations. And the reason for that is that, we are, generative AI is going to make a huge impact in our global economy. The productivity is going to increase tremendously. It's making an impact today. If you saw really quickly what I was able to do with just a prompt to give us subject lines, but now I can derive a lot more than that. That's just the tip of the spear. Right? So this is us over here. This is us where sales, marketing, customer operations, this is an opportunity where with very little investment, we can gain huge productivity in our jobs and what we're doing in those areas, in sales, marketing, and customer operations, which is really, customer operations are the student experience and student support and so on. So that's why this is important, right? Because we're going to move into this world where generative AI is going to impact us. And the other thing is that competition over amenities is over, right? So the next battleground is really is technology. How do you provide students with the best education that sets them up for an ever-changing world in the future, where technology is first and AI is helping kind of accelerate and change and do a lot of different things. So, somebody coming to campus now, it's not necessarily a great, the huge advantage to have an amazing campus, but it is really, really important to have a technology-forward campus and a technology-forward workforce that can spend all their time interacting and having high bandwidth conversations with students, rather than writing emails or writing reports or on things like that. So like the productivity is huge there. And if you look at it from a public institution perspective, ASU, Arizona State University, has been leading the way in terms of how they're thinking about adopting AI. They were one of the first ones to partner with OpenAI to use ChatGPT in the classroom, and they provided students and faculty with enterprise versions, and they actually built courses around it in order to teach them how to use these tools. They incorporated them in the classroom. They incorporated them, and it was one of the largest. I had a chance to speak with the CIO, Lev Gornik, there during one of the ASU GSV conferences 2 weeks ago, and around my podcast as well. So he said he was amazing when he hadn't seen so many faculty members raise their hands that they want to be trained and they want to learn this. About 1,700 of faculty members raised their hand, where he said the last time that happened was during the pandemic when all the faculty was forced to teach online. So he said there really wasn't a time in their history where so many faculty members saw the opportunity, the potential, and they raised their hands. So think about it this way, right? It's not about amenities anymore. It's about technology. How can we use technology and how can we use AI in order to kind of propel and think about making things better for that student experience, for productivity, for teaching and learning as well. So, here's another question for you. And we don't have a Mentimeter for this one, but just start thinking about, like, what do you perceive some of the biggest challenges and barriers for adopting AI institution are today? And again, this could be technical, cultural, financial, regulatory. Feel free to post them in the chat as well as as we're going through this. But I've heard them all, and it's always so here's some of them that we hear quite a bit, right? And this is literally some of the holdup. It's the first one. I don't know where to start. Like, where do I start? How do we identify use cases where AI can be very difficult, right? So identifying these use cases can be difficult. How do I use them? Where do I use it? So it can be very difficult to know where to start. The second one is really just the lack of expertise, right? So everybody is trying to figure it out, and there is really no in-house expertise. That's probably why you guys are here, right? That's why you're here in this webinar. That's why you're you're kind of going and learning on this, but there's really no lack of expertise. There's really, even the people who are building this AI, they don't necessarily understand like how different use cases are going to work. So that's a big question mark for us. Employee buy-in. There's fear. I mean, let's be honest, right? If somebody has been doing the same job for a really long time and they don't want to change, I mean, we don't want to, but there's this fear of job displacement or lack of understanding and trust in the technology. So I think there was one answer. One of the words in there was, I forget, but it kind of alluded to this a known component to it. And the fear of job replacement is very real because AI can do and can amplify and can automate a lot of those things. But that's kind of a holdup as well. And then last but not least, we hear a lot about privacy and security. And some of the questions that we get there are important, but they're really founded on fear and kind of what the media or some of the things, they're not coming from a place of understanding. They're coming from a place of shutting down first and then opening up later, rather than kind of thinking about how do we build an environment where we can experiment and kind of iterate quickly, right? So ensuring data privacy, security of your data in your AI systems, can we trust them? So those are some of the questions that come up and their holdups. So we're not going to solve any of these today. Like, I don't know how to solve them, but by educating you, possibly we can get you to a place where you understand a little bit more. And that's why we're doing these webinars, right? So literacy is really the first thing that we need to do around these. So when we think about AI, let's take use cases now, right? Maybe we can solve some of those use cases today, maybe a few. So let's think about the ecosystem of higher education. And when we think about how we can use AI, there's three different areas. Student experience or your customer experience, right? So students, alumni, or your constituent experience. You think about productivity, your staff productivity, how fast, whatever they're able to do. And then in the classroom, in teaching and learning, how we're incorporating in the classroom. So in each one of these areas, the first is just around student experience. Students are changing very, very fast. They're very different. And I don't think I could have said it better myself, but I'm going to have a clip here around Simon Sinek. He's an author. He's an organizational behavior, and he does a lot of thinking. The book Start With Why is a really, really pivotal book for a lot of us organizational leaders.
They've grown up in a world of instant gratification. You want to buy something, you go on Amazon, it arrives the next day. You want to watch a movie? Log on and watch a movie. You don't check movie times. You want to watch a TV show? Binge. You don't even have to wait week to week to week, right? I know people who skip seasons just so they can binge at the end of the season, right? Instant gratification. You want to go on a date? You don't even have to learn how to be like, hey. You don't even have to learn and practice that skill. You don't have to be the uncomfortable one who says yes when you mean no and says no when you mean no, but yes when you... You don't have to swipe right. Bang, I'm a stud. Right?
So look, our students of yesterday are very, very different, right? Yeah, the students of yesterday were we campus and community was really important, but students of today, they're much more. Their experiences are mediated through technology. They're expecting things to be done through their mobile phones. They're on their phones a lot, and then their computers a lot. So that's really changed on how we do this. And Simon said it the best. But again, digital savvy students today, they really expect convenient, fast, and personal experiences because that's what they're getting from Amazon. That's what they're getting from Netflix. That's what they're getting from all the consumer interactions that they have. And of course, a high ticket price, college education can be very, very similar, and they expect those same experiences to here. So we have to be able to provide that to them. So when you think about the experience side, there's three areas that we think AI today can make a huge, huge impact in that experience. The first one is 24/7 support and 24/7 answers, and they can be done through AI assistants or chatbots. That can be your first line of defense. So there is absolutely no reason why today, a day or 2-3 days for a question. We have all that knowledge. So why not put it in a place and then have AI actually pull that knowledge and provide it to that student and in the context, in the time that they need it. So AI chatbots or AI assistants are the first thing. The second is hyper-personalized marketing. Longer are the days now where one size fits all. We need to personalize marketing in order to get through the crowd, in order to get through the noise. There's a lot of it, and the best way you can do that is by personalization, not just hey first name, but personalization around content, program, location, interest, timing, where they are in the website and how they're moving around. And then last but not least is proactive outreach. Like this is an area where we have to be really good. Like they do something and we proactively outreach, not just kind of the, hey, early alerts, for example. For some of us, like we've heard that word quite a bit. Early alerts, it's like student is doing bad. We got to, we have to kind of mobilize the campus around to make sure we turn that around. Well, why actually wait until that point? Let's just get those students to a place where if they did something great, let's just, ask them, hey, this is, well done or job well done, or even anticipate beforehand. So in terms of the student success, you see really, really good results with this. Within 3 months, this is a Foresight Tech example. They saw inbound call volumes go down by 24% by implementing something like an AI chatbot. 79% total conversations resolved, and they saved the equivalent of 2 full-time people answering these questions or emails or phone calls through that they were coming in. So huge impact within 3 months immediately. And of course, this was last year as they implemented it, a huge impact today. Now, think about the productivity side. Now we are, we're just being asked to do more and more and more every single day with less and less and less. And when you think about productivity, there's a lot of different areas in there, but think about productivity in terms of AI helping in content generation, in producing a lot of stuff for you, right? Knowledge discovery. When we think about knowledge discovery, it's, well, I need to search for this piece of information. That can be on the public information, but it can also be policies, and it can be a lot of different things internally. So we spend most of our time searching for things like, where do I find this? Where do I find that? Where is this? What's this policy? I need to email this student, that student. student. So knowledge discovery is really important. Of course, content generation is really important. I showed you with ChatGPT. And last but not least, actionable insights. As marketing and enrollment folks, like we really, really need to understand our data, but sometimes we're not data specialists and we don't understand a lot of that. So AI can help in pinpointing and finding patterns and allowing us to understand where we can make an impact or where do we need to pay attention to. So this actionable insights is really, really important around that as well. So I purposely didn't go too deep into the content generation because in this area, because there's a couple of things in here, content generation, but I've expanded a little bit more in here and a couple more use cases. In content generation, think about campaign strategy and building, right? Now you can communicate with the AI and think about it as a collaborator, right? So you can, a collaborator that has a lot of knowledge behind it, that can act just like any expert. So campaign strategy and campaign building can be done through that. Personalization, you provide a letter or you provide an email, and now you can personalize, change the personalization, say, okay, now rewrite this for this audience, rewrite this for that audience. This content transformation becomes important. Email marketing, writing email campaigns. And in a lot of cases, some of the tooling can do that for you as well. Idea generation, coming up with ideas is the hardest. And sometimes we sit in committee meetings or meetings all around, and it's like, okay, we do our poster board examples, but there's a better way, right? So idea generation is really important, and we use it quite a bit at our organizations as well. Search engine optimization, coming up with keywords or content that is SEO ready can be, and then sometimes we hire a lot of agencies to do this stuff for us. Well, generative AI can do that a lot better for us now. Research is another really important thing. Think about where you go in to research certain topics. You're writing for something. You want to pull up some historical data. Let's say you bring in all of your institution's knowledge into one central place, and now you can become the institution's historian, right? By using generative AI to kind of pull pieces of information and then incorporate it actually in the marketing campaign. So, pretty interesting. And then data analysis was the last one. So you can do this stuff. And all of the things that I'm talking about here can be done with the ChatGPT, for example. You can do data analysis in there. You can write email copy. You can do research because it can go out in the web as well. So all of those pieces are part of that. Now, I do want to mention teaching and learning, even though we're mostly focusing on the student experience, productivity, and then marketing as enrollment folks, but we do touch on this quite a bit. And in some cases, the teaching and learning part is essentially taken over the discussions that are happening on campuses today around AI. And I think that that's a small part of it, but that is a part that, we can kind of think about a little bit differently, but the opportunity that we're squandering is around their experience and the customer experience and the productivity they can bring to our teams. But because faculty members are sometimes the loudest or sometimes can be very, very powerful, those voices, this teaching and learning can become really, really taking the conversation. So content generation, again, can be done in there. Personalized learning, like modifying content, and then AI tutors. So in all of these three areas, you can start thinking. And of course, there is other webinars and other things that you can go in and focus on if you're interested in this. But looking ahead, right? Like, what are your institution's top goal aspirations? And we have the same kind of code in here, the same website that you had before. But let's go ahead and take a look at that and see where we are. And I'm going to switch. I can switch. I think I have it up. Actually, you can go ahead.
Yeah,
Errol, you can
posted
pull
it in
it
the
up.
chat as well. We've already got one response up. We'll go ahead and start to put that on there. So this is your chance, as you've been thinking about all of this foundational content that artists has put out there. Not only what is being asked of you from your respective institutions, but what are the ideas in terms of maybe the goals that your institution should be thinking about in relation to artificial intelligence at this stage? No pressure on yourself if you don't have an answer. As you saw from the earlier statistics from the MIT survey that artists put out there, 9% have not integrated artificial intelligence into their organizations. So we recognize that this could be something that is all at the ground level for this audience. But looking ahead, what are your institution's top goals or aspirations in utilizing AI?
And we can always come back to this one, right? So we can always come back. I know that we're running a little bit behind in terms of time, but this is really important for us, right? So start thinking about this. This is an important topic, around how, like, what are you going to take back, right? So again, start thinking. It's like specific areas, processes that you can take where you see AI playing this critical role based on some of the examples that I gave you. And then as we move forward, this is an important quote that this is Julie Sweet she's the chair and CEO of Accenture, and this was a quote from a snippet that I'm going to show in just a second. But the punchline here is that the single biggest difference between those who will use AI successfully and not are the leaders educating themselves, right? Because yes, we are going to folks are going to be using it, but the leaders are changing the transforming organizations and institutions and how they think and how they kind of put just like ASU has taken a step forward, and leaders need to learn and understand it themselves, and then they can pull up their folks as well forward. And now Accenture is one of the largest consulting firms out there. Last year they had 0 consulting in generative AI, and this year they're on a run rate to $3 billion in consulting services for generative AI to help institutions incorporate, and help not just institutions, help organizations incorporate it. So listen to this one around leaders and how they think, and she provides a really, really good example.
I'm old enough that I remember when I was working at my law firm and email was introduced. And I remember because I was a young lawyer who, after 5, you had to stand by the fax machine yourself to fax anything to send to a client. So email came, and we thought, this is amazing. And the heads of my law firm said, well, email's great, but you cannot attach a document and send it to a client because it's not safe. Now think about that. A little bit of what's happening today when we have these abstract conversations, our employees actually want, in many cases, to use this technology, and they're going to start pulling. For example, if you do field sales in consumer goods, you spend most of your time trying to figure
and that's
out
recruiting
what was the
for
customer,
us, right?
Do we have a delivery issue because that's a different department and all that. And today with the technology today, with all the appropriate caveats, you can very accurately now on your phone be told which customer to go to, whether they had a delivery problem, generate something personalized, and then spend most of your time talking to your customer, which is how you really grow. So when we think about AI, of course, there are different risks. The technology is going to change, as Sam said, right? And it's all about knowing, what is it good for now? How can you implement it with the right safeguards? As a CEO, I have someone I can call in my company. They can tell me where AI is used, what the risks are, how we manage them, and therefore we implement it. And so we're implementing it broadly in the areas where it's ready now. But I think we have to be careful that we don't, you started this panel by saying we're going to solve the problem of AI. And the immediate thing I said is, I hope we're going to figure out how to use AI, because it's a huge opportunity. And I'm sure Albert's going to talk about what it's going to do for science, but it's also doing a lot of great things for our people who don't want to spend their time reading and trying to figure out things and would love to spend their time with clients, with customers. So the single biggest difference between those who will use it successfully and not, I believe, are leaders educating themselves. So they're not the ones that told me I couldn't email a document. But you cannot do that if you do not spend the time to learn the technology and then apply it in a responsible way.
So that's a very powerful, and you can kind of get the whole context, right? And again, as we think forward our institutions, we need to start doing this, and we start thinking about how we can apply it every single day. We are doing these conversations and these webinars specifically so you can have experts that you can kind of rely on, and you can understand what's going on. They can tell you how best to implement it and so on and so forth. And the best thing to do is actually start. So start now and start today. I think we've had a great conversation. I didn't run out of time. I think we had just enough time, so we have about a couple more minutes left in this presentation. One of the really great resources that you can go and just learn about marketing, enrollment management is a network called Enrollify. And they are, producing 18 plus podcasts. They're producing a lot of educational content and educational material. So there's something for everybody there. But they talk, there's AI talks, there is enrollment marketing talks, there's tactics, and so on and so forth. So I'll leave this slide up here if you're not familiar with Enrollify to go and take a look at it. But I'll hand it off to Errol to kind of bring this home for us. And I'm really, really excited to kind of see you guys next week for the next one.
Thank you so much, Artis. And I just want to say to everybody, this is thank you to Artis first and foremost. The work that he's doing at Element 451 on his Generation AI podcast. I want to be very clear of how I came across Artis. Just having been in the industry, his name, his company has really been at the forefront of pushing an innovation agenda. And that's exactly what this Admissions Redesign project is looking for. If you get a chance to listen to his podcast, which I am an avid listener, he and his colleague, JC Bonilla, who is connected to Gary Vee. For those who don't know, Gary Vee is very much so on that innovation track, as Artis is as well when it comes to this kind of work. And I think the leadership of the Council of Post-Secondary Education as the vanguards of this project for the state of Kentucky, as an extension of the Kentucky Success Collaborative, showcases the recognition that you can't think about the future of admissions, the future of higher education, without bringing in experts like Artis, without bringing in content that will allow you to learn about what it means to engage in a new world, and do so with something that has such a strong context as artificial intelligence. For my Kentucky colleagues that are online, this next year is going to be a journey through a design thinking process that is going to be led by Marbridge Consulting Solutions. We talked about Arizona State. The president, Dr. Michael Crow, has seen so much success by implementing a design thinking process very early in its inception in the early 2000s and leading them into the future. This is one part of that overall process. We've already done a student journey. We're doing this AI session, and then in July, we're going to be engaging in not only in June and July, quantitative data related to enrollment, recruitment, as well as dual credit. And then to end the summer, we're going to be engaging the employee and the staff to get their perspective on what the student journey is like. And then in the fall, we're going to engage in a diverge and converge exercise to really dig deep in some innovation activities to help come up with strategies that make sense. And then at the end, produce some recommendations on areas to be able to point to. Artificial intelligence will be a key part where we think and make recommendations about vendors, about opportunities to reimagine the admissions processes. And who is going to be centered at this is everybody that's in this audience. The people that are talking today, we are not the experts or the saviors or the individuals that have the answers. We are facilitators of self-discovery. And I want to thank Artis for being a facilitator today and discussing and taking us through the first installment. With less than 1 minute left, I am putting here a link for you all to do in real time, because this is going to inform the content that we put for the rest of the sessions. Alrighty, just going to drop it in the chat. If you could click on that link and give us your feedback on this session, this will allow you to tell us what you want to see for future sessions, what worked, what didn't, and everything in between. And Artists and I will take this opportunity along with the Council of Post-Secondary Education to bring this content together and design this as we go along so that you feel ready to jump right in. Thank you very much for spending this Thursday with us. You have a wonderful day, and let's continue the conversation on artificial intelligence. Take care, everybody.